Video, I believe, that we want to run with the team. Boom, there we go. Hit it.
The Las Vegas Grand Prix was the biggest sporting event of 2023. We are shutting down 3.8 miles of Las Vegas, and to do that at this scale was an epic event.
We've got 300,000 people that are descending on the streets of Las Vegas. This is a cultural moment.
This allows us to see everything that you don't get to see from your seats. It's been fantastic.
Connectivity is an extremely important part of this event. That is why we selected T-Mobile as our partner.
We had to bring a brand new layer of technology from the ground up to satisfy the needs of the Las Vegas Grand Prix.
T-Mobile cares about a fan perspective. We love our customers. We love Las Vegas Grand Prix and the Formula One fans.
That's really cool, yes!
Now that we've laid an incredible foundation, we can continue to innovate and make the fan experience better.
Working closely with T-Mobile and experiencing everything that their 5G network has to offer is something we will continue to grow on year in and year out.
Clap it up, clap it up. So again, I'm lucky enough to be sitting here with Mike, Ronan, and Jillian. Before we jump in, because we have a lot to cover, only 30 minutes, I'd love for each of you to share a little bit about your role and what does a typical, if I can say typical week, look like within your capacity at T-Mobile.
Let's go tenure.
Yeah, tenure.
We jump into the old guy here. Before we begin, I'm going to say we're in exactly $10 fund and everyone says pink. We got you yesterday, we heard one today. If you say magenta, it means you're probably with us already, so you probably know. You can come by Sphere Zone and get a free drink on us. Magenta. Yeah, I've been here 12 years. I call it the dirty dozen. Let's see, a typical week, there isn't a typical week. But generally, you know, my team oversees social and advertising, so the majority of that week is probably spent, somebody's always on production. We're always looking at creative, responding to creative, reviewing creative, developing creative. We're in some capacity of development or execution every day. Sometimes that tends to be the night job because we're also in meetings all day trying to sell through ideas or work with the strategy team on what we're going to do. But it's a different day every day, which is one of the things I love about it.
Oh, we're doing tenure. That's right, that's me. I've been at T-Mobile for about 11 or 12 years. I started as an intern, so it's been a really fun journey for me. And my day consists of chasing Ronan a lot. Very responsive. No, my day is, and weeks are really mixed, which is, I think, part of the reason we've all been here so long is super dynamic, and it allows us to work on a lot of different things at once. So it might be advancing something on a festival sponsorship or an artist tour or coordinating, like I was just doing the hallway security detail for a talent coming through somewhere in 5 minutes or, you know, whatever. So super dynamic, but a lot across different areas of entertainment and talent, and then whatever else we need to solve for across the business.
I guess I'm the new kid on the block compared to these old dogs. I've been here for about 7 years now, 7 years in March. I'm Jillian's counterpart on the sports team. Everything that you see for Las Vegas Grand Prix and baseball and golf ultimately funnels through me and my team. Typical day in the life is anything from partner negotiations to day-to-day portfolio management to annual planning to also chasing and agitating Ronan and our creative and brand partners.
I see a common denominator here.
We also talk about how the brand guy is in a shade that is not.
It's right here. It's actually, I'm wearing the only brand color. White is yeah.
Sounds fired. You want to defend yourself. All right, so the name of the panel, right, is Driving Brand and Business During Cultural Moments. I think, in this era, we know that there's a million different major cultural moments that happen throughout the year. And so how do you all approach, before we jump into F1 specifically, how do you all think about and approach which cultural moments to engage?
Can I start? Yeah, so I think we start with the foundation of our portfolio still, right? Like we make sure that across sports, entertainment, hospitality, venues, we make sure that we're building a really great foundation that we can lean on. So we try to have a plan and an approach and a reason for being that's laid in strategy. But I think we have to allow for flexibility for cultural moments, right? And coming in, and whether that's leaning on an existing partnership that we already have and enhancing, or doing something net new but that's adjacent to what we do. I think keeping our eyes and ears open, and not just us, but our teams and our agency partners for what's going on, because those ideas can come from anywhere. But ideally looking at the landscape and saying, where do we kind of have a right to play to? Where do we lean into music so it's adjacent to that, or sports, and find moments that we think will really matter for our brand and customers. But it's a really fluid process. I feel like if it's too rigid, then we're not doing it right, because it comes up as we go. What else do you guys think?
I think just to add to that, it feels like culture is being shaped, real time. So you can only plan for so much. There's certainly opportunities like a Vegas that made sense for many different reasons, but something that we recognized pretty early on was going to be a pretty significant moment in a sports calendar. But I do think if you want to, I think culture, you have to be authentic, and sometimes that you can't plan for it.
Yeah, the other thing I'll say is, you said the word enhance. We look at those places where it isn't just a matter of, okay, we're going to be there, so let's show up and kind of slap the logo and just let people know we're here. It's how can we actually bring something to this too, and if there's a really symbiotic relationship that we can go build on and actually come and say we can make this experience better. It's one of those things we look for. The other piece is, based on the partnerships that Mike and the team are building, it's what are we actually doing with those partners to go build and enhance the experience on the back end as well. And so there's I call it the sort of back of house, front of house thing where there's stuff that's being built that our solutions are actually powering and helping to build a broader experience, and then we can go talk about that out in front of the house to consumers and make that experience better as well. And we're beginning to build that enhancement is where there's real magic.
Right, and I think the video did a great job of highlighting some of that within F1, right? That's why we're all here to talk about F1. Can you all give a little bit maybe behind the curtain on how that program was developed? And it's a two-part question, so a little bit about how it was developed, strategy, and then as we go into, this is year two, right? We're smack dab in the middle of it. Were there any learnings from year one that you have implemented to better enhance the experience for year two?
Yeah, I think Vegas was kind of a right opportunity, right time, as we were starting to just evolve the way that we approach our sports partnerships and relationships. If you go back 10 years ago, we were maybe using them primarily as brand and post-paid vehicles, and with the deployment and rollout of 5G, you've kind of unlocked a ton of opportunity to deliver kind of connectivity for these partners. I mean, what's not connected in the world today? So Vegas we saw what was happening with Drive to Survive, so when we talk about culture, we recognized that this was going to be an incredible moment, but it started with our network at the center. In terms of what we're doing, there's back-of-house operations, so T-Mobile for Business has deployed a number of different solutions that enable point-of-sale systems to mobile ticketing, to just general guest connectivity. You're talking about 105,000+ people every day in a location that wasn't built to service 105,000 people. And then we look, beyond technology, just from a, experience standpoint, we recognize the opulence and F1 is a world of incredible experiences. So when we looked at something like T-Mobile's own at Sphere, we knew that there were other big brands that were going to be doing big integrations that people would be excited about, but we also recognized that, hey, this was a perfect convergence of sports, entertainment, and we wanted to do it differently and ultimately create the destination for not only fans, but specifically our customers on the grid. You want to talk about evolution?
Yeah, I think we laid a really great foundation last year. We have a tendency to not half-do things, and we go all in aggressively, which is awesome. I love that about our brand. But we did make sure that we laid a really good foundation for how we partnered with it, especially as a first-year race. I mean, they were learning it as we were learning. We'd ask them questions, they'd be like, we don't know, we're developing that tomorrow. We're like, great, cool, we'll be on the same page. So it was a wild journey to get to, I think, what culminated in a great experience last year. So this year was really, how do we take that and build upon the things that we think worked really well, optimize it, go deeper in the parts that matter. So we, to the point of kind of intersectionality of sports and entertainment, that Sphere Zone, there's an incredible stage that's right in front of the Sphere. Lean into music, which is a core tenet of our portfolio, and then say, how do we make this even bigger and better for our customers? And so we have a consistent way we show up, which is Club Magenta, which is really a house for benefits and experiences for us. We took it to the next level, literally made it a 3-story structure this year. It was a 2-story structure last year, so sometimes it's that literal. But really is an amazing house for our customers and to show love for everything that they sticking with us and the loyalty and the experiences they can have. So there's definitely the consumer piece that has been enhanced, and then we've done a lot more in the world of talent and creators and really telling the story and making sure we have the right amplification channels to tell this partnership story in depth.
Just I'll add, I think what was really unique about this partnership is when we signed this deal, there was no paddock building, there was no track built, and there was no technology behind any of it. So it almost triggered like an emotional response last year when we saw the cars kind of go out and start racing, because it felt like, I mean, so many different site visits and planning sessions, and you're trying to understand this vision that they're trying to bring to light, and then communicate it to like the Ronans of the world of, hey, you need to lean in here because this is going to be incredible.
Here's a render.
Yeah.
Trust the process.
Exactly. The mini model, I mean, everything. So it was pretty unique, and you don't get an opportunity to do that. I mean, we did the hard hat tours, and Jillian and I were down here 2 weeks before the race, scratching our head. We're like, man, we have a lot of work to do. This isn't going to happen. So it was a really unique relationship from a partnership standpoint that just doesn't come with, something typically.
I will say, to that point, we were just talking about on the way over here, is it is hard to really understand the scale of this thing until you're sitting there looking around at it. And it kudos to our leadership just over the years, having that sort of like, I think I said it to somebody else, like the nerve of any company to think they can come in and like build something this big is pretty awesome. And so just that drive to constantly go, we go bigger, 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 and what if we did this thing over here, and what if we did that? Let's go look into that. So there's always been this idea that we can just sort of elevate, and there isn't really a cap, which is terrifying, but it's also exciting.
Right, you're not.
See, Amy's over here like, well, there is a cap actually. It's the budget.
Amy's out the door right now.
It's the vision that people have. It's like, I mean, the fact that, to your point, this thing even got built here over a couple of years in Vegas is amazing, and to be able to have a part in that, and to have partners that are like open to saying, hey, we have an idea to go build a big thing around, the Sphere Zone. It's like, cool, let's go see what we can do there.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, you guys done an amazing job, and even in preparation for this conversation, I was telling you outside that when I began to read up on what the activation of programming was, it was just almost like an endless cornucopia of programming that felt, at Hello, we talked about this too, it felt like it was a consumer-driven program, but then you start really soaking it up, and it's like, oh, this is actually a B2B opportunity as well. And I know that both Mike Siewert and Mike Katz have talked about, one of those opportunities for growth in the company is around the B2B. And so can you, dive a little bit more into that aspect of the offering and the partnership?
Yeah, it's a massive component to what we're doing on site, the why behind this relationship. This year we're going to have over 65 customers that are joining us. We've got 2 days of programming built for them, and really delivering a white glove hospitality experience that, again, rises to the expectations of what you typically see in Formula One. What I think is really cool about how we've started to approach these relationships is, as they're hosting these customers on site, they can naturally talk about all of the things that we're enabling. So there's a little bit of a see-say approach of, hey, pretty incredible that a partner like Las Vegas Grand Prix chose us to deliver, all of these experiences, both from a consumer standpoint, but also the back house stuff is incredibly compelling.
Right, yeah, and I mean, it delivers truly on the topic that we're discussing, right, which is how to drive brand and business. You touched on something before it slipped my mind, Ronan, when we were having a conversation, you made the reference of show, don't tell in your approach to creative strategy and programming, and so can you kind of expound on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Mike hit it pretty good there. I mean, literally, if we're hosting business decision makers, they had to use the technology to scan their way into that thing. So they're seeing all of that in action. when we talk about how we go out in the consumer space and I was going to say talk about it, and when we show it, when it comes to the network and the experiences that the network provides, it's hard to actually talk about that in a way that's meaningful to people. Everybody in our space is saying, we have the most reliable, the fastest, and there's a place to do that, but we're trying to get to a place where people are recognizing the experiences that those things enable. And so we've pushed ourselves to get in that space of how are we showing this and then making it relevant. And really it's just it's a relevancy discussion. How do we show people that the experience that they're having is driven by this invisible network? And that goes anywhere from, the things that he's talking about in terms of driving the solutions in a place like here, or just being out in the middle of nowhere and having a road trip and listening to Spotify.
Right. And it even builds within the relationship of the creators that you all work with, right? And showcasing how you can work with them and support them. Jillian, can you talk a little bit about the strategy that you implemented in terms of who's coming to an F1, without giving any proprietary information, surprises, whether it's athletes, whether it's music artists, or whether they're socially native creators. One is, how do you differentiate? I thought that was a great, interesting point that we talked about there and shared with the room. How you differentiate, and then how whomever you invited to this, why they were relevant for this experience.
Yeah, we basically put out an open invite and said, who wants to come? So that was the strategy. Just kidding. No, I think the way we look at talent across the portfolio, it's really powerful when there's a mix of different people and different roles they serve, right? So we'll look at not only, yes, who checks the box of, maybe a driver who we worked with. We have a new partnership with McLaren, and so brought in Lando Norris to the signature store on Tuesday, very obviously the most relevant for this type of environment. But then also looking at who do we have partnerships with who have interest in those spaces. Just because they're a musician doesn't mean that they don't love sports or they don't want to come to F1. And as long as they have that authentic connection and their followers and their fans know them as, oh yeah, they love those things, it's a great place to overlap there. So we'll look at the people that are more the obvious in the lanes, because it's a great way to speak to the avid fans, but then also looking at where are those other talent across sports, entertainment, creators who have an interest and a reason for being in a platform that can create a really interesting mix and dynamic. So we'll look at athletes. We have some talent coming through on the music side that, again, a lot of what we're doing consumer facing is music at places like Sphere Zone. So one of the examples is where Alesso is performing on Sphere Zone stage tonight, on our T-Mobile stage. He did a silent disco for T-Mobile members in our Club Magenta last night for like 200 people. Just that's it.
Was anybody there? Anyone?
It was, yeah.
We know you were there.
Yeah.
I'm a little jealous.
Which is
It was awesome.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
which is super cool, because it's like, how do we, again, to the point of like those unbelievable, can't put a money on experience or price tag on experiences, provide that for our members before they even see him on the stage tonight. So things like that. So there's a role for things like music and enhancing experiences, and then the creator world, which Ronan can expand on, but is, again, kind of that amplifier of how do we use their platforms and their content shops, because a driver, not taking anything away from Lando, or a musician, not necessarily the most socially native all the time. So making sure that we have that mix of people to create dynamic, diverse content for us, and use their platforms too, especially with creators, because they bring that inherently, is a huge part of the mix. But if you want to expand on the creator strategy too.
Yeah, I mean, we looked at a couple things. Some are creators that, right now they just have sort of the microphone in their corner of the internet. But we also look at people that are going to drive a lot of conversation. They're getting into space. They tend to just show up in relevant cultural spaces and have their commentary on it. We looked at, as Jenny said, music, fashion, all the things that are sort of adjacent to F1 outside of just car racing. So how do we make these stories relevant to people that are a broader audience and expand it out? And so again, fashion is a place where we have people that are going to be commenting on what are people wearing here? What are they doing? It makes it relevant to a new audience that may not have been thinking about F1 in the first place, but they go, whoa, that's actually a pretty cool experience. T-Mobile's bringing this thing to me that I hadn't expected to see. And it just gets a different take. It's not the brand saying, like, look at these cool people that are here. It's their take on it, but we're giving them that experience, and they're going to have a lot of fun. What we're excited about is when we start to see these creators cross-pollinating each other's content.
Right.
Just see what happens.
Yes, I think.
We're going to see what happens.
Right.
You guys will see it as we see it. Yeah.
I'm hoping that it isn't like tomorrow morning, where they're all hanging out. They got a little special space. I have this feeling it might be like The Hangover, the White Tiger, things like walking through, which might be for great content as well. But, stay tuned.
Danger.
Stay tuned, guys.
I love just where we are now in convergence culture and sports, music, fashion, in terms of people all showing up in the same place, right? That's something that I think we see so much more now, and it doesn't feel like odd man out. Like, why is this, hip hop star at a tennis match, or vice versa, or even again when it comes to F1. So I love that. I want to take a slight pivot a little bit off of F1 to talk about that huge, at least in my opinion, commercial during the Super Bowl earlier this year. And so, when I saw that, for me, that was probably one of the most memorable, Super Bowl commercials. How did you approach going into that with so many loaded decks as it relates to the star power in there?
Which one are we talking about? There was a couple.
Jason Momoa.
Jason. Oh, okay. Well, we've had a long-standing relationship with those guys, and it's interesting. They tend to be kind of writers and creators themselves. So I've kind of looked at it like, yes, that's in the big commercial space, but at the same time, they're doing the same things as what creators do. And we don't do this all the time, but we have a special relationship with they will actually write things and pitch them as well. And so we find, again, this sort of symbiotic relationship with certain talent where you go, all right, tell us how you want to show up, and we'll make sure that we find a way to do that as well. It's not always that way, but that's one where it's like we've kind of had I think 3 years in a row now of doing stuff with them, and it was how do we expand on this and start to bring new voices in here and new ways to bring it to life. The Super Bowl is interesting. I remember years ago when we worked on the first one, was one of my favorite comments from a leader was from all the way up on top. We have 364 days to sell. We have 1 day to entertain. And if we can find a way to entertain, to give people some knowledge, that's a win. And so, we look at how do we first and foremost give people who are expecting and at this point demanding to be entertained on that day, because they're going to eat you alive on the web if you don't.
They will do that, yeah.
So it is always kind of how do we amp that up a little bit.
Yeah.
The challenge then also becomes how do we expand that out into other areas, and that's our goal going forward is make this not just be about a commercial. It could be like a long-standing campaign or a long-standing effort that we can get behind across all of our ecosystem.
Yeah, and I love that because what I just got triggered around is the ability to not just the creative to drive brand, but what's the plan around it? What's the follow-up those other 364 days that can deliver on the ROI of driving business that the brand kind of helped jumpstart in the conversation? So let's think. MLB. I'm jumping around. I'm just going to jump around now.
You thought you'd never ask.
There's so much. There's so much. That's Can you talk about I know that you all just re-signed. I think last year maybe. Did runs through 2028, I believe. Can you talk about that partnership? Some of the cool things that you all do there. How you're also integrating just localized activations within this bigger, broader, long-term strategy.
Give me a wink if I'm going too long here.
Okay.
Baseball has been our longest tenured partnership. It's the biggest relationship that we have. I think one of the things that you typically don't see brands maybe stick with one partner for that long. And one of the things that baseball has done really well is evolve with us and recognize that evolution is critical to maintaining the relationship. I will say 10 years ago, working with MLB and approaching things through an innovation lens, it was difficult, but huge credit to their team for snapping to what was important to us and recognizing the value add that we bring. So whether it's free MLB TV that we do every opening week, launching kind of in conjunction with T-Mobile Tuesdays, which at the time was our primary customer loyalty program, to extensions into minor league and little league, which for us from a business standpoint was really important to start to spread our wings into local communities. This next evolution, which for me as a baseball fan is one of the things that I'm most excited about, and hopefully when it rolls out it'll be a little bit of a pinch me moment, but we're working with them on development and deployment of the automated balls and strikes system. So T-Mobile's 5G network will play a pretty critical role in enabling some of that data transfer. And once those systems are actually in stadium, we also feel there's going to be a ton of additional opportunities that are unlocked. So we're hopeful. I think if you saw the news maybe a couple days ago, it might have even been yesterday, they're planning to bring this to spring training next year, and that kind of signals a much bigger shift to a big league rollout, hopefully as early as 26.
Right, that's game changing, literally. So I want to jump to you, Jillian, and well, I'm assuming it's you or everybody around music artists. I know that you all do a ton of partnerships around festivals. You do a ton of partnerships around artists. For example, I know Snoop Dogg is an artist that you all work with, Luke Combs, as well as Sabrina Carpenter, which shameless plug. We went and saw the concert. My colleagues at Vevo did in Los Angeles, and she had a pop-up truck. And it was I saw how successful that was. How do you all deploy, or how do you all think about delivering business goals around a music partnership with artists?
Yeah. Tours, so festivals, they're such different moments, which is funny in our portfolio. So festivals you have hundreds of thousands of people, not dissimilar to an F1, and a captivated audience for one weekend to make a really big impact, right? It is a moment in time, go deep with these people that are here, make sure you're maximizing it in all those spaces. Tours are really challenging because you have an incredible artist, an enigma, an icon like a Sabrina Carpenter or Luke Combs or a Post Malone or whoever. They move around. So you have a date in a different city for 30 dates in a row, and how you show up in those moments and not lose traction but not overinvest in those moments too, when you have more 20,000 in a moment instead of hundreds of thousands, is super important. So we do look at elements in our portfolio different based on the audience, based on the artist, based on the demographics. But I think with tours, they're challenging. I think it's a matter of how do you lean in and make sure you're maximizing all the assets we negotiate to use them as a platform. Like, make sure that association is at its core, right? You get T-Mobile and Sabrina Carpenter, T-Mobile and Luke Combs, and then it's really about how you enhance that. And a lot of that is the same core tenets, whether it's sports, entertainment, it's the brand or business objective underneath it, and then it's making sure that we tell an amazing story to really amplify that. I think we've used music as a great brand vehicle, but it's also been a long part of our history. We've been doing music partnerships for well over at least the time I've been there, and before, and it really is also because it's driven by our customers. So we listen to customers and say, hey, how do you use your device? How do you use your network? And music is a massive way they use our products. And so we've shown up in a place that is hopefully authentic there. There is definitely a role that network serves. When you're at a festival, we will hear about it. If you do not have great connectivity and our stage is named T-Mobile and you're sitting there and I'm like, I can't get a snap to my friend, so there is undoubtedly a network component for sure in everything we do, but they're a great passion point and vehicle for brand in moments like the pop-up truck to deliver benefits to our customers.
Right.
Yeah.
I love it. I know we have a short amount of time left. I do want to give this one last question to the panel and then maybe open it for Q&A. Two of you on this panel have spent over 10 plus years. I know, Mike, you're pushing 10 years. You're maybe a year too short. And so, what inspires you for each of you? Given that the marketing world, there's oftentimes a 3 to 5 year stint. Before someone may switch from the company. What inspires you to still be at T-Mobile for all these years? And let's stop there.
Go tenure. I'll go second tenure.
To me, it's kind of that idea of it's a new day every day. There's always some new challenge to solve, and there's always some new, I won't say problem, opportunity that arises, but it keeps it interesting. And again, I referenced sort of that notion early on of there's always this desire to kind of push and go see where we can take this, and that's exciting. It's an exciting place to be. I remind my team a lot. We're one of the biggest companies in the country, if not the world, and we shouldn't take that lightly. And so we have a huge responsibility to continue to grow the brand, but that gives us amazing opportunities to do the things that we do. And we're an idea-driven culture, and so as somebody who likes to just pop off ideas 10 times a day, it's like something will stick here, and we'll go have some fun doing it. But again, just the opportunity to go out and play to me keeps it really exciting and fun. And if we're not having fun, then we shouldn't be doing it at all.
Everything Ronan said, and then I just love the people we work with. We have an amazing.
Well, that too. That part too.
I said everything you said. I know. But you guys know, this industry, you're in the trenches a lot. You're in late nights and early mornings and on site and whatever, and we love the people we work with. And so the chance to work with really talented people who are also fun and cool to hang out with, and you develop an amazing culture of trust through that. And so I think the people has been the most dynamic part of it for me, along with the amazing pace at which we work that just keeps it super crazy and fun all the time. Yeah.
I think agree with all of those things. I think for me, it's the overwhelming support that I feel like we as a sponsorships and partnerships team feel from our leaders. I think they recognize the value in what we do. I think they've enabled us to explore so many opportunities and think about things differently. And so long as we're being diligent in ROI and not being reckless with some of our spending, we've been able to build what I consider to be a pretty world-class portfolio. And I think without that support, that's hard to do. So sponsorships sometimes can be a pretty fluid part of the marketing mix. I feel like they're an anchor point for us.
Thank you. And what you all do, just for the record, Ronan kind of he mentioned it, just for the room, if you don't know, T-Mobile is the world's most valuable telecom company with over 200 billion in market cap. So the things that you do every day, clap it up for that. People don't know that. We're talking about driving business, and the work that you do every day contributes to that. So I just wanted to make sure you all, people understood, and you got your grace for that one. Any questions in the room? Yes, sir.
I'm interested in something you said before, but when you're approaching a deal that you really want to do, but the partner doesn't want your technology, how do you negotiate that through, or are you just not interested in those deals?
It depends, because I think partnerships can serve multiple purposes for us. There are definitely relationships we have that do not have the same level of technology integration that Vegas does. I will say, for the most part, what I feel like we're finding over the last couple of years is there is a need, and an authentic need, and not one that we always need to create the same way that we were, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So whether it's, growth in, small town rural markets or T-Mobile for Business, there's a role for partnerships, and we definitely look at it through the lens of what story are we trying to tell, what business goal are we trying to solve, and sometimes it's not always network driven.
Yes, sir.
Well, first of all, I'm excited for tonight. Let's have it up. So I'm looking forward to doing it.
Are you in Sphere Zone?
I will be.
Stop by our Club Magenta space, please.
Yes. Yeah. Get there.
So, shameless plug, that's it. No, honestly, got me thinking when you were saying, you have to show renders, you didn't know what you were getting yourself into. And we're talking about cultural moments. The Sphere itself has become a cultural icon that can be used in the world. So curious to think about what you knew early on in those early renderings of activity, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you guys were some of the first to activate and have the Sphere, right? And with that, how do you use the Sphere to help drive that awareness and put it within the story? Obviously, I see it in your brand and how many of the fans are in, but just kind of want to understand that.
Yeah. First of all, shout out, we got 2 people right here in the front that worked on it. I think both years. Well done, guys. Good job. The Sphere's an interesting one. Last year, you're right. We were one of the first or at least the early groups to get in and build on that. And we'd gone through a couple of cycles, with our agencies, on trying to figure out how to do it, and finally said, well, it's the Sphere team, the MSG team, are the only ones who actually know how to build for this thing. So they were also kind of admittedly saying it's a bit of a learning cycle. And I think what we did last year was really cool, and now looking back, I think their technology and their knowledge of the space as well has grown so fast and so much that we went to them this year and said, we want to push the innovation on it, we want to push the immersive experience on that. And so we worked with our agency partners, Density Creative, and the MSG team really closely, and lean on them a lot, just to say, what can we do and how far can we push this? And it looks amazing. If you haven't seen it, spend some time. I think we have 6 minutes on it every hour. It looks really cool, and just also looking, they're really good about sharing, here's what other people are doing, here's other ways to go about thinking about it. And then we'll ask questions, and they'll try to problem solve and go, oh, that's a good idea, let's think we can do that. But it's also just a big part of kind of being here in Vegas and showing up on that thing. I mean, you can't miss it. It's one of the most innovative pieces of media in the world. So it's so amazing to see. And it's another one of those things where I talk about the team, like, don't take it for granted. Like, I flew in and looked at that again, I was like, oh, there it is, it's amazing in real life. Like, you get so wrapped up in the day-to-day of just building these things, and then you get here and you see it, and you go, oh, that's effing amazing. Am I allowed to say the real word?
Let's go for it, go for it.
What are you gonna say?
Yeah.
Let's do one more question and that's it. There you go.
So, congratulations over the last 10 years. I'm sure you all have been a massive part of this ascent that we've seen from T-Mobile. And I want to hear, so you used to be a little bit of the underdog, you know, the uncarrier. So what's next for you guys as you're no longer the underdog? You're
That's a great question.
the most valuable.
I'll say we will always be the uncarrier, and that's actually a question we get a lot internally as we sort of evolve, and well, we're still the uncarrier, and yes, we will always be that. That's inherent in the nature of who we are and what we do. But yeah, you know, for those of us that have been here for a while, it was kind of the smaller, well, not kind of, it was the smaller underdog. There was 4 players, and now there's, you know, 3, and we are number 2 in that. And again, going back to that culture of like, yeah, we can do that. It was always like, let's just not stop. Let's punch to the top. The challenge for us is we've grown so much, but inherently we still have that scrappy nature, and so it's just like, well, punch through and go do this stuff. Oh wait, there's a lot more layers of things to get through. So it's sort of an internal process thing that we're constantly trying to be aware of and solve for. How do we keep that scrappy, move fast, break shit idea and ethos that we have, but also operate at the level that we do? It's a constant balance.
And not leave the same trail of bodies behind.
Well, I think you all do it really well. There's a level of edge, I feel like, in everything that happens when I see you all's creative in the marketplace. So congratulations, kudos to you all. Thank you, Mike, Jillian, and Ronan for this panel.
Thanks for doing that.